Hello, and welcome to Diary of a Name Dropper, a brand new podcast from me, Meredith Hepner Chapman. Every fortnight, I'll be introducing you to a friend of mine, and hopefully you'll get to see the side I know and love. I can't wait to take you on this journey. We'll be exploring the world of music, arts, some politics, and current affairs. For my very first episode, who better than to kick off with the one and only Jack Savoretti. Jack is a singer, songwriter. He's played in Venice with Kylie. He's headlined Wembley, and he's had 2 #1 albums. But he's a lot more than that to me. Sit back, get the kettle on, and enjoy. Here it is, episode 1, Jack Savoretti. Today I am welcoming my most favourite name drop, the wonderful Jack Savoretti.
Hello.
Hello. Now, normally I would start off an interview by saying, how are you, Jack? And would you like to explain how we know each other? But we know each other because you can't choose your family.
Otherwise, we wouldn't know each other. No, sounds like you're saying otherwise we wouldn't know each other. Unfortunately, blood ties us together.
Forever. And that is the burden you have to take with you. No, we do joke because I think from the queens of the name drops. Our mums were pretty good at, being connected back in the day from being pretty cool 60s girls, let's be honest.
My mom just sent me a guest list. I can't remember the name of the club. It was it wasn't Annabelle's, but it was opening sort of late 60s, and the guest list was absolutely insane. It was Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, and then my mom was on the list. Ingrid Hepner sort of popped up. So she was very proud. She put it on the family chat the other day, but she was in good company, or they were in good company, should I say.
But she should be proud because she wasn't just a name drop. I mean, Auntie Ingrid, your mum, was in a very famous book called Birds of Britain, cover of Tatler, and, wasn't just a hanger-on, was very much part of it, and my mum was slogging around to radio stations trying to get the Small Faces played, so they've paid their dues.
They've done, but they've also done it, I think. A lot of the reason why, let's put it this way, it's very rare that I get starstruck. The only time I usually get starstruck in my life has been with footballers who are like half my age now, and I still get starstruck. But I've never really been starstruck in the entertainment world when it comes to sort of actors, musicians, or photographers. And I think a lot of that is to do with actually the way my mother spoke about Marvin Gaye or James Taylor. The stories she had about these people. I mean, she always used to tell me about this night she was at a party in London, and this sweet American darling boy sat in the corner playing songs, and it was James Taylor. Or this time she went to a country house and all the men went out hunting, and one guy came back and said, I couldn't do it. It was too violent and he didn't want anything to do with it. So he hung out at home with all the women, and that was Marvin Gaye. So she used to speak about all these kind of, she had all these little anecdotes, but she spoke about them like they were so charming, and so she always talks about them as young boys, like sort of. So I guess for that, still to this day, I'm rarely impressed. Obviously, I think if I ran into James Taylor, or unfortunately, God rest his soul, Marvin Gaye, I think I'd be very starstruck.
Well, that was my first question. So we talk about name drops. I don't like to call them name drops. I like to call them anecdotes. I think that's far nicer. But if we were name dropping, because I want to know if you've been name dropped as well, other than by people like me, who really, really, really would be your ultimate name drop that you could use right now?
That I've worked with, that I've been, Kylie Minogue is definitely, I think, the sort of, it wasn't just writing with her, it wasn't just singing with her. There was 2 moments that I always remember really having to really try hard to play it cool, because inside I was just screaming. Once was when I was on holiday, actually, in the south of Italy, in Puglia, and she got in touch. And we had written this song, but originally it was for a film, and it was never, there was no intention to put it on anybody's album. And Kylie said, would you be okay if I put this song on my album? And at that point it was just her singing. Would you mind? Yeah. And at that point it was just her singing, and I was already like, awesome, how cool to have a song that I've written on Kylie Minogue. And then she said, I want to use the duet version. And I had to play it really cool, like, let me think about it, the kind of situation. Which
I'll get back to you on that.
I'll get back to you. Yeah, let me check my diary. And so that was cool. That was a very special moment for me. And then the next was I did this wonderful, probably one of my favorite tours I've ever done. It was this classical sort of unplugged tour I did around Italy, playing opera houses rather than rock venues. After doing 15 years of playing all these, from small pubs and clubs to rock venues and stuff, I really wanted to go back to this kind of classical environment of making music. And I did this 14-day tour around Italy, playing in some of the most beautiful opera houses that the world has to offer. And at the end of it, La Fenice, which is probably the most beautiful opera house in Italy, it's up there with the Scala. I mean, it's debatable which one you prefer. But La Fenice asked me to close my tour because it was being so successful. Would they close it in this theater? Now, I knew I had to bring something special to this. I agreed to it, but I didn't want it to... Because we had played the Venice Opera House, which is also beautiful, and it's kind of right next door, only 2 weeks before. So if I was going back to do this close at La Fenice, I had to bring something special. So I reached out to Kylie, and I said, would you come and, perform our song on stage with me at La Fenice? Well, it really surprised me when she said yes. She said yes immediately. And not only that, but the day of the show is when we recorded the music video in that theater at La Fenice for Music's Too Sad Without You, which was our song. So the music video, the theater that we're in, that night we actually played there live. And it was my wife's birthday. And she was sitting in the royal box of La Fenice next to my father, which for somebody like me, this stuff doesn't happen. Like for musicians like me, to have your father and your wife in the royal box at La Fenice, this only happens to, incredibly top of ballerinas, opera singers, piano players. This is the real, creme de la creme of classical music. And they sat there, and it was my wife's birthday, and at the end, I turned the most beautiful theater in the world properly into a real osteria or like a pub, and I made the whole theater sing "Happy Birthday" to my wife.
Do you know what? I've never had so much FOMO in my life.
Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And you talk. You're so humble. You always say, "Oh, why would I be there? And why would they want to work with me?" And I just think, I love that about you, and it does frustrate me because you really do believe but you've worked so bloody hard, bloody hard, and I can say that because we've been at the coal mouth. We were all there at the early days of the Elgin. And
yes.
I used
and
to
all the
use
rest.
And all the rest. But
the Elgin was a nice one. That was a nice one. That was like Notting Hill.
Yeah.
Those are the good times. It went downhill after that when you start really traveling and finding yourself in places where it's when you get somewhere that nobody wants you to be there. That's when you really feel it. It's not so much playing to the empty rooms that you can live with. It's when people genuinely want you to shut up and they sort of look at you like, mate, stop. And you're like, come on.
Does that really happen?
Oh, yeah. Does that happen? Yo, man, I've been told to shut up numerous times. Luckily, that was a long time ago. I did this Cafe Nero tour, which was madness, but one of the funnest, coolest, strangest things we ever did. Cafe Nero had suggested they do this thing where they have an artist of the month. And this was at the time where I was really struggling to get gigs. I was starting out. Nobody really wanted anything to do with me. I was with an independent label. We were competing against Universals and Sonys and, all these big... And we just weren't getting the same opportunities other singer-songwriters were getting. So when Cafe Nero said to me, we're going to make you Artist of the Month, I sat down with them and said, listen, can we do something more than just put a little sticker on your thing saying Artist of the Month? Can I come and play maybe at one of your Cafe Neros? And they loved that. And we were going to do a show. And then at the time, I think it has changed now. There were some really strict laws in UK for live music. So many pubs and places couldn't have live music. I don't know why this happened, but it did happen. Anyway, thankfully, it's changed a lot across the country. But at this time, it was really hard to play live. So they said, listen, Jack, you can't come with your band. It's illegal, technically. They don't have a license for live music, etc. They said, but what you can do is maybe just pop in quickly with your guitar and do one or two songs and busker. So we did that in London, and it was so cool, and all this press came down, and people loved it, and it was a real hoo-ha that I got a little bit overexcited, and I said to them, can we do like one in each city across the country? And they thought I was mad. And looking back, I was pretty mad because I think we did 64 Cafe Neros across the country in the space of 3.5 weeks. I mean, we were doing 3 to 4 a day, driving just me and my manager, Nico, for hours on end to get to these. And some of these Cafe Neros were in really random places, from like, derelict high streets where this was the only thing open to little sweet country villages that this was the only thing open. And some people welcomed us. We would get there and there'd be like a few fans and a bit of press. And other places you really had like mothers with crying babies, people on laptops telling us to shut up. Sometimes a lot of the people that worked at Cafe Nero didn't even know why we were there. We had to explain to them, no, don't worry, your bosses know about this. Because they'd tell us to stop. We'd walk in and start playing the guitar.
Awkward.
It was very awkward. There's actually a documentary of this on YouTube. Yeah.
Well, we'll put the links. We'll put the links in the show notes. Just
but
so
I'm rambling. What were we talking about?
No, you're not rambling, because actually that leads me on really nicely to the fact that you may have done the Good Evening Wolverhampton, but you have had 2 #1 albums, and you have played at Wembley, which I'm so. In fact, I don't remember the Wembley gig because I cried all the way through it, and then I cried through your Radio 2 show the other night as well. So for me. I mean, my artillery of name dropping has just been ramped up, so I'm incredibly grateful for that. But what was the turning point? Was there a point where you thought, I can't do this anymore? I can't do it anymore? Or do you have that one last push where you think, I've got nothing to lose? Or did something magical happen?
I think a bit of all of that happened. It was after my second album, which was called Hard and Easy, it really just hit rock bottom. The label I was with didn't want to put it out, and I was just learning more about the industry than I was about music, and seeing a side to the industry that really was it left me quite disillusioned, and I got very angry that an industry.
And you had a family by this point as well.
No, we were expecting, and that's what really that was probably the change. That was where I got a real fire in my belly I didn't know I had, because up until this point I was very sort of easy come, easy go. It wasn't like this lifelong ambition I had to be a musician. I never thought about charts. I never thought about record sales. I just kind of wanted to get away with doing this. I loved making music, and I thought if this is an option, I'm going to do whatever I can to try and make sure. My theory was always, if I work really hard, I'll never have to get a job. That was always my approach to it. So if I worked really hard, I love working hard, but I never wanted to have a job. I always wanted to sort of be in control of my own destiny. And I realized very quickly in the music industry, I had a job suddenly. It felt like I had a job. People were talking to me as if I worked for them and so forth. And it just felt a bit wrong. And that was the drive when suddenly I got really frustrated at the industry, because it was the industry that was stopping me. It was kind of not allowing me to do what I love, which is make music. And I thought that was such an oxymoron, that the music industry could be the thing that stops you from making music. And I just wasn't having it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to stop working with anybody from the music industry. And for my initial team, when I started out 15 years ago, there's one guy, Chris Hessian from Hessian Media, who's my radio plugger. He has been with me since the day one. We just have this wonderful relationship. He's a brother. I love him. And he just always stood by me, and he always told me when I was wrong, and stood up to me. It's not like he wasn't a yes man, and still definitely isn't. But he just was caring about the music and about what I was trying to do with the music. And so we stayed together, but otherwise I just changed everything, and I only asked people I knew that had nothing to do with the music industry, including my 2 managers, Nico Misha and Danielle Livesey. He was sort of studying law, and she was a very successful interior designer when we first met. And I basically asked them to be a part of something that I was trying to recreate.
It's so wonderful. I love
just tried to create something in the industry. I read a great article once by the head of XL Records where he said, if you want to know how to sell Jack White, ask Jack White. And that's something that I really learned the hard way. I was waiting for some Prince Charming or something to come in and tell me how this works. I thought maybe if I just keep singing, somebody will come and tell me, okay, you're good, now we'll make you into something.
Well, there was talk of changing your name, and it wasn't in the very early stages. And I think the beauty of you and your fans, and I know so many of your fans, and they've become such good friends, is the fact that you've always stayed true to yourself. Integrity has been key. Manners, I mean, whenever we've been, I don't know how you do it, whenever we've been to a gig, the time you take to rather than chatting to family, to chatting to your wonderful fans.
We might have been known to get caught up every now and then, you and me, after a show, chatting a few drinks. No, but I think that's because, like you said, I know them too, and it's not like that all over the world though. And this is something that's starting now, which is very new for me. England, like all throughout the UK, England, Scotland, Wales. We really built this grassroots. We got in the cars, we got in the buses, we got on the trains. We did that for 15 years. And so you get to meet the front row. I call it the front row. You get to know your front row of shows very well. There isn't anywhere in England where I don't look in the front row. And I kind of know that front row very well. I know these guys because they've been supporting us. They've been with us. They're
so loyal.
They're loyal, and they've brought us to where we get to make the music that I choose to make. I don't have to do anything because something worked. These guys are there. They're the reason we work. And that's something that my label knows. That's something that everybody I work with knows. These are the people that give me a career. So everything is for them, and and has to be respectful of that. We have to be respectful of that. Otherwise, all of this disappears. Now, what's happening though in other parts of the world is, thanks to our fans here, other places are paying attention and start to play our music. And now we are getting fans, and we just don't know why. Well, I mean, it's for the music basically. It's not us, which is also incredibly. It's very flattering, and it's quite magical to see happen. And you can see how some artists, if this happens to you on a global level, at a quick level, it can really go to your head, because it's magic. I mean, arriving at an airport in Athens, and the taxi driver gets excited because you're in his cab, and the only reason he knows about you is because the radio's been playing you nonstop for a year, and you've never been to Greece before. That's the kind of stuff that blows my mind, and it gives you real faith in music as well. You're like, oh, the music did the talking. So there's so many sides to it that one has to appreciate. And both of those sides can also be very disconcerting too, though. They can be really tough, because sometimes you just don't have the fan base show up, and sometimes your music just doesn't get shared. So it's about, when it does happen, you got to embrace it and be grateful for every inch of it.
And I guess there's never a time where you wake up and think, oh God, I've got to be Jack Savoretti today, because you are you. You are Jack Savoretti. There's no stylist or PR training or someone telling you.
There probably should be.
No,
but
I think that's why it's so. And we talk about integrity, and I think the fact that you have built these solid foundations with these wonderful loyal fans, and you know who you are, and because you know who you are, that music just comes through so pure. I mean, I cry when I hear your music, because it's just. Someone messaged me the other day and said, "Oh, I love your cousin's music. He's the only musician I hear, and I really feel he's emotional as he's singing it." And so many of your songs are about Gemma, and that, they're written with passion, and that comes through, and that can't be bought or styled or manufactured. So I know you've had a real slog, but from now on, in my humble opinion, those solid foundations can only keep growing into wonderful things, and your music is timeless. And I know I'm blowing smoke out your ass here, but
yeah, you are. I'm loving it.
I really am. I know, but normally we're taking the piss out of each other massively. Oh God, what album are you going to play? But I remember, was I out in Formentera for my honeymoon or something? I can't remember, but I remember we came over, and you played When We Were Lovers, and then I'm Yours, and I can still remember how I felt, and I remember thinking, if someone said, describe Jack Savoretti in a couple of songs, at that moment, it felt so real and so pure. And I was sat, looking at you, listening to it, and it was so right and perfect and beautiful. And I remember thinking, oh my God, the Radio 2 guys are going to just love this. This is I can imagine people singing along. We've always been a real sing-along in the car family. I mean, you played She's Gone on your radio show, and I think I know why to a degree, but
that key change. Yeah.
But me and your mum used to sing that along with Ave Maria. Well,
it's my school run music.
It's just school run music.
Hall and Oates in general was kind of my school. It was the music, that was what my mum was playing. Those were her jams in the car. And so to get John Oates on the record was a real.
And Michael McDonald. We always had a lot of.
I've rediscovered. I've always loved Michael McDonald, but I've definitely I'm rediscovering a lot of his solo stuff.
One of my favourites.
Incredible.
And What a Fool Believes, and the backing tracks he's done on so many. I actually saw him supporting Cher.
Wow.
Yeah. A friend of mine was playing as a session musician for him and said, come along, we'll leave after Michael McDonald. Obviously, and it was the 90s and I was trying to be a bit cool. Yeah, totally leave after Michael McDonald. Michael McDonald was amazing.
But Cher was incredible.
Cher then came on. I fell in love with her within 3 seconds. Yeah. The majority of her show was her slagging people off, which was just brilliant. And she won my heart. So if ever you can get a chance to see Cher in concert.
There are some early 70s albums of Cher that I highly recommend, because they're not Do You Believe in Life After Love. Don't get me wrong, that's an incredible song. If it wasn't for the auto-tune, that's a great. Yeah, it's a great song. If you play that song on the piano, you'll be in tears.
There you go, that's your next cover.
It's just a distraction. Somebody did do it. I don't know who, but somebody has done a wonderful cover of it. It's just the auto-tune that's a bit distracting. But if you listen to her 70s albums, they're incredible. She's got, and also Sonny and Cher were awesome. I mean, there's some great Sonny and Cher songs.
Yeah. I mean, but that reminds me of going back to our mums and rummaging through their... And it was your mum that got me into Michael McDonald. And it was those school runs in Switzerland. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those school runs in Switzerland, because you say you never wanted to be a musician. I know, obviously, I introduced you to all the greats.
You did. I wouldn't say all the greats.
Some in prison.
You introduced me to mute. Well, some. I think all of them are in prison, or they should be if they're not. Some of them. No, I think it was more that you told me to look away from the mainstream, because at that,
Oh, did
at that
I? I
point,
literally was joking. I really didn't think I had any impact.
Well,
on
you were. I remember you were very into your acid jazz, which we can safely say wasn't mainstream. I mean, it was more mainstream than it is now, but it did have a moment. It was big, especially in the UK. Acid jazz did have a moment, a real thing, and you were very into that scene at the time. But you kept
the samples.
Yeah, exactly. But you just kept showing me stuff that was. Just not. It wasn't on Now 21 or Now 25, whatever. You know what I mean? It wasn't on the hit list, and that was always really cool. It made me look. It just made you cool. Well, it was the fact that you liked it that made you cool.
Well, you introduced me to Ray LaMontagne. I remember you phoning me and saying, "I've just heard a song called Trouble. You need to hear it." And I still remember that phone call.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that song changed the game for a lot of us songwriters. He's one of those artists that when I went to see live, it was the closest thing to a religious experience I had, and it was also very depressing, because it was like back to the drawing board. Like, this guy just raised the bar for all of us. It was at a time where I remember I was coming out with my first album, and Paolo Nutini was there, and James Morrison, Damien Rice had just had his thing, David Gray. It was all that kind of vibe. And everybody was so talented and good. But when Ray came along, it was like a bear just walked into a room and we all looked like sheep. It was amazing. It was just a different level. Not only his voice, his vocal performance was just near to none. It was his lyrics. I mean, still to this day, his song "Empty" is probably, to me, the greatest song ever written when it comes to lyrics.
Really?
Yeah.
And considering a lot of your lyrics start as poetry, that's a pretty big...
Well, you could read LaMontagne's, you can read his, you don't have to listen to, I mean, him singing it takes it to a different level. But what I love about him is he writes like Emerson, like one of these old American romantic poets about, the sort of the real American dream, that freedom and the Marlboro Man kind of mentality without the branding. But that sort of American dream that anything is possible. And it's very poetic. It's really self-reliance. That's what I was looking for. And he sings a lot like that. And you can read his lyrics, and it's like reading one of those amazing American romantic poets.
Yeah, great American songbook, classics.
Yeah, exactly.
But talking about Switzerland, we're digressing as only true Hepners can. You wanted to be a footballer.
Yeah, 100%.
So Jeremy will never forgive me if I don't talk to you a little bit about football and the whole... Because he's a Baggio fan. Didn't Baggio play for Juventus? So it winds you up.
Yeah, I was a Baggio fan because he played for Italy. I mean, Italy 90 was my first romance, my first date with football, really. Well, I
think a lot of people's.
Yeah, it was the first age where, I mean, my son just had that with the Euros now. My son's 6, and he's a Genoa fan like me, but unfortunately being a Genoa fan, every time he watches it, we lose. And he's like, this sucks. This isn't very fun. And I think it's about to get a lot worse for us, unfortunately. But when it came to Italy, this summer was the first time I was like, by the way, Savoretti, little Savoretti, you're half Italian. And my father is Italian, and he sort of brought me up watching the Azzurri. So I was doing the same with him. And luckily, his first experience was pretty awesome. He had a pretty good experience, especially going to school in England, where the whole tournament he was given a lot of lip about being Italian and wearing the Italian jersey.
Really?
And not being, all sweet, nothing bullyish, but just rightfully so. That they were right.
Well, I support Germany, so I kind of understand.
Yeah, why do you support? I mean, I know why you support Germany, but Italy, England, who are you supporting? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Italy, England, who am I supporting?
Yeah.
Ooh, I have to be England.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said that. I would have been curious as to know why.
I'm not a xenophobe in my own country. I know I portray one,
but I do love this place.
We had we shared a grandmother, and she was, despite saying that she was so British, she was probably the most German person I've ever met, and we literally grew up with the schnoodles and schnitzels, and
indeed,
didn't we? And she'd take us every winter to a Rosa where we would ski, and where I think the parents just got drunk and we were left to our own devices. But
it was wonderful, yeah.
You guys had lederhosen and everything. I mean, you fully committed to the German grandchildren role, but it was so fun. And those holidays had a fair few name drops as well, and firm friends throughout the years. And you are an exceptional skier, but with football, you did get to a level, didn't you? For
when I
Lugano?
moved, when I played in England,
See, I keep bringing it back to the football. I'm not letting this go.
No, for sure. I can talk about this all day. When we got to Switzerland, I moved to a place called Lugano, and it was a very different education system there. It was suddenly I was in this school. I didn't speak the language, and all the sports weren't done at school. They were done for clubs afterwards, after school, and everybody played for a different club about where they lived. And a friend of mine who was really good at football and had seen that I was into football and good at football during the break at lunch. Like we played in these little concrete sort of, with the goals painted on the walls, a real sort of typical Italian school with priests. It was everything you've seen in the movies. And it was a Don Bosco school which is Salesiani, anyway, I digress. But it was sort of, he realized that I was good and he said, why don't you come and try out for FC Lugano? I play at FC Lugano, and he was up at this point sort of the best footballer in the school. So I went, I tried out, and I got it. And I got I was properly signed up. I got I don't know how you say it in English. You get like a little tessera. It's almost like a little driver's license. You get registered as being a player for FC Lugano. Well, it wasn't a paid contract. I was 8. But I was signed up to FC Lugano, which ended up being quite a successful team, Europa League and everything. Not my team, not me playing in it. But I did that for about a year. And then unfortunately, I got cursed with the sort of, they believed in me too much. They moved me up a year. So when I was about, 9, they put me in the under 12s when I was 9, when I should have been in the under 10s. It was something of that sort of situation because I'd played 2 matches.
Highlighting how good you were.
Well, it wasn't that I was good. I scored a lot of goals. I was very small, and I read the game very well. Striker, forward. Oh. Very small little. I used to wear number 8 a lot. Always dreamt of being a number 10, but I was a number 8, which back then used to sort of, number 9 was always a tall guy, number 8 was always the little guy, and number 10 was the playmaker. And I was very slow, but I was very, very little, and I could get away with not being seen, and I just read the game very well. I was always in the right place at the right time. I was one of those annoying players. But they put me in the big boys, and I just disappeared, and I couldn't, and I hated it.
Well, a kid's head goes down, doesn't it?
It didn't. I went from being the guy who scores all the goals to being the guy that can't touch a ball, and it was scary. I'd walk onto a pitch. I was very short, and it wasn't fun. And I just sort of stopped doing it. Then they sent me on loan to another team. Funnily enough, they were like, go get some experience with this other team. So I went to play for a team called Gentilino, which was where we discovered this American school because it was next to the training ground. And that school, my parents took me out of the priest school, the Italian school with priests, and put my sister and I in this American school. And that changed my life. That's when, first of all, my parents divorced at this time. And so my dad was the one who always took me to football. And my mom, if I said I don't want to go, she didn't really put up much of a fight. It was, okay, darling, you don't have to go. So that was the end of my footballing career because all of the sort of discipline behind it disappeared. And also it was just something my dad and I did. So when I went to the American school, yes, they had a team at school, but it was not really my thing. I didn't really care. It was just a sort of activity at school. It wasn't leading to anything. And it was there that I discovered through this complete culture shock. Even though I was living in Switzerland, I very much grew up in the States because this was an American sort of a utopia of America in the middle of Switzerland. It was this incredible school up in the mountains, beautiful,
and you've
beautiful.
Still got so many friends from there. I mean, it had the most incredible alumni.
Yeah. 10 of my closest, like my best friends, other than like sort of a handful, are all still from high school. All my kids' godparents are from high school, and so it was a very meaningful time in my life. It was very international, kids from all over the world, and yeah, my mind was just opened and blown, and it was just crazy. And safe to say, at the same time that this was happening in Switzerland, certain substances were sort of legalized, were not looked. They weren't, and this is true. My school, funnily enough, when I went to my school, it was renowned for being very good at sports, which also was why I was attracted to it. Cut to 2 years later, and we were all poets, photographers, sculptors, painters. Everybody wanted to be creative. And that was very much due to drug laws changing in Switzerland. That kind of sent the school in a bit of a spiral for a year or two, and then they had to get their hands on it and started drug testing, and and it's changed. It's not.
Well,
like
I remember you had to go to summer school in
Staines in
yeah,
Egham. No, it was in Egham. Egham or Staines.
I know I
remember.
had a responsibility
Staines,
to
yeah.
encourage you to get there, but I think I might have just taken you to Portobello Market. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
you did.
pretty
I
sure.
remember that so well with a Spanish friend of mine called Patrick.
Yes.
You took me and him. You picked us up in your car, which was quite an experience getting into your car. I mean,
Yeah.
there was more cassettes on the floor in your car than I think in most local radio stations.
It was a
at the
stereo
time.
on wheels. Yeah.
It was a stereo on wheels. Again, a lot of acid jazz tapes.
What you were going to say there? A lot of acid.
Maybe, but I wasn't into that. But it was a lot of stuff. And I remember you taking us to Portobello. I remember even to this day. I'm gonna get choked up now. But I was actually at my father's house just a month ago, and I was in the basement going through all these things. And his wife said, "Can we throw this away now?" And it was this red and blue cardigan that I bought with you.
Peruvian
Yeah.
knitted.
Yeah, the Peruvian, exactly, the Peruvian cardigan. Yeah, and she said, "Can I get rid of this now?"
No. Did you save it?
No, I say it's still there. Nothing leaves that house. It's like a storage room. So it's still in the basement of my dad's house.
You were so into your music, and Portobello is where you then found your home and met Pedro, didn't you?
I met Pedro actually, funnily enough, in Parsons Green. It was just before I moved to Portobello. I came back from LA because I'd gone to live in LA when I was 17. Then it didn't work out. 9/11 happened. America.
Yes. Well, I should just say you were in the air.
I was in the air
on the day of
9/11.
9/11, and that was a heart-stopping moment.
That was an experience.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for another chat because that's a long one. But I did end up coming back to Europe and not knowing what to do with my life. And at this time, I'd grown up in Switzerland for 10 years. But my sister had moved back to London, so I came to visit her. And I slept on her couch in her apartment in Parsons Green for a good 6 months. And one day I was at the bus stop, and there was a guy there dressed exactly like me. We had ripped jeans, an army jacket, a blue beanie on, and headphones. Like it was almost funny. And we sort of gave each other that, hey, how you doing? Heads up. And then we get on a double-decker bus, and I go upstairs, and the guy sits behind me. And I think, oh, God, here we go. I had just moved to London. I wasn't exactly a city boy at the time, so I didn't really know what to do. And he taps me on the shoulder, and he says, "What are you listening to?" And I remember so clearly I had a Discman, and I was listening to Nora Jones's album.
Come Away With Me.
Come Away With Me, exactly. And he goes, "Oh, great album." And I was like, "Yeah." And then he goes, "Do you play bass by any chance?" And for some reason I said yes. I do not play bass still to this day, but I said yes.
You don't.
And he
It's
goes,
one of the instruments you don't actually play.
No. I mean, I can get away with it, but I can't play like a proper, I can't play properly. But I said yes. And he said, "Would you come and audition? I've got a band." I said, "Yeah." And the audition was in 2 weeks. And funnily enough, between then and 2 weeks, that audition, I actually ended up getting a manager. That's when I met my managers and decided that I was going to do something on my own. So I went to the audition and I just said to them, "Hey guys, listen, sorry, I'm going to do my own thing, but I'd love to come and I'd love to just follow the band and hang out with you guys." And so we all became friends. And now Pedro and I have been working together for almost 20 years. Yeah, we've written a lot of songs together.
And he's wonderful. And he's great
divine.
fun. And my daughter's madly in love with him. And I adore him. I adore him. And Mummy says yes on air. the Jewish mama.
You have the blessing.
The matchmaker, yeah. So we've got to touch on this bloody pandemic because for people that don't realise, selling music, having a single in the charts or just selling a lot of records doesn't give you the money it used to. The real money is in touring.
Yeah, for us,
which, of course, for 2 years has just been squished.
Dead.
And and not only that, you've had so many ups and downs because there was talk of a drive-through, and then that was all vetoed because of regulations
and financially not making sense. We tried a lot of stuff.
You've really had to hang on in there, and it's so awful and frightening to literally lose 2 years' worth of income. And I just think to all musicians out there, please keep doing what you're doing for the sake of the listeners, because we love you and we've got your back. And, we don't all want to go to the pubs. We'd much rather be coming to gigs. And for me, music is a saviour and it evokes memories and it connects people. So keep doing what you're doing, but ever the resourceful. You have had a little side project involving a tipple or two, which you very kindly gifted me a bottle of, and I'm not a drinker because I'm dangerous. But the reviews are beautiful.
No, it's
Beautiful.
amazing. It's been getting a lot of accolades. It's just, it really is going from strength to strength. And it's something that was a real passion project. I did a fundraiser for the hospital San Martino in Genoa about at the beginning of the pandemic. My father got on the phone to me and he's like, you've got to do something, man. You've got to do your job. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, doctors and nurses, everybody's doing their job. You've got to go to work, man. And your job is to entertain. And so you've got to reach out to the people here and entertain them. Keep them, keep the morale high. That's what you're supposed to do. So I did. I reached out to our fans, and this was the beginning of Instagram Live, which I didn't know anything about until COVID, even though it was always there. I never used it or watched it. But I did 2 Instagram Live sessions back to back on these 2 nights in a row where we decided to write a song with people that were in lockdown in Italy. We weren't in lockdown in the UK yet. Actually, there was a lot of denial about it ever coming to the UK. It was sort of something that happened over there. But I was talking to all these couples, kids, elderly people that were all sort of suddenly locked into their apartments, which was unreal at the time. Like it was something out of a sci-fi movie. And we decided to boost morale, I decided to write a song with all of them. But at this stage, it was just for fun. It was just to do something and keep in touch with the fans and give something a little. The song ended up being really good, at least I thought. I thought, this is really great. This is a really good song. How can we use this? So I started talking to my team in Italy, and I was like, how can we use this for good? What can we do with this song? And we decided to put it out with all the funds, all the proceeds of the album going to a hospital in Genova, which was the 4th most hit hospital with COVID at the time in Europe. And it was having it was in trouble. The whole of North Italy was in trouble. But all these other regions like Bergamo and Lombardy, they already had a lot of fundraising going on because they were on the news all the time. Whereas Genoa, where I'm from, is the kind of city that keeps to itself a lot of the time. That's just the Genovese way. And so I thought this was a good opportunity to reach out because they're never going to ask for help. Let's do something. Let's put them on the map a bit. And it did really well in Italy. It did great to the point where I decided to have a concert just to really try and, double the amount of money and really double the impact that we were doing for the hospital. Let's do this streaming show from Portofino, from somewhere special, which is in the same region of the hospital. And it was also kind of to celebrate the opening up of Italy because lockdown was over. So we went to do this concert, and about a week before the concert, these guys phoned me and said, listen, we're local. They got in touch with us saying, we're local gin producers. Could we provide you guys with some gin for the event so you can just have an aperitivo and everybody can drink our gin? And we thought, how great. Let's get some local guys to help out. We get there, and I knew these guys really well. Like, I grew up with them when I was a kid. The aunt of one of the guys running it, his aunt was like probably the first love of my father's life that I'd spent my whole life hearing about. They have this beautiful house in the mountain of Portofino where they actually make all the herbs for the gin. Everything is grown there. And I just fell in love with these guys and fell in love with everything they were doing. And they sort of suggested, do you want to do something together? And I just wanted to really invest in something that I'm close to, something that represents. It's so rooted in my family, Portofino. From me being baptized there to my grandmother hiding out in the mountains there during the war, to my grandfather who was a war hero in that region for fighting against fascism. This was his kind of hunting ground, his playing ground where he was just adored by people. My aunt lived there. It's the only place in the world, having moved around a lot as a kid, it's the only place in the world that I feel is my neighborhood, which sounds pretty strange saying that about someone like Portofino, but I can literally show up there and everybody from every store or restaurant will come out and say hi, and they've known me since I was born. And it really feels like I'm going back to my neighborhood. And so I really thought this was such a great opportunity for me to bring my love for Portofino out into the world, which I have done with this album in general. All the artwork is in Portofino. All the videos, most of the videos were shot in Portofino. And this was just another thing that I could really hold on to my roots with. And I think during the pandemic and during the last 2 years, I don't know if this is for everybody, but for me, it made me really want to get to know more about my past, my roots, my family, so that it can carry on, so that my children, all 3 of them now, can know about that moving on. And so all of these things just keep us all connected.
I mean, I know why you love it. Just to look at it, it's so beautiful. When
it's
you
the most beautiful place on earth.
It really is.
I really say it. The more I travel, the more I realize it's the most beautiful place on earth.
So magical. And I can remember us playing when we were little in there. And I remember your christening. And I loved when you gave me the bottle. You pointed to the artwork and said that's where I was christened. And it is. It's such a honestly. Yeah. Please check out the bottle because it's so lovely. But I do remember one of my memories of Portofino, exactly as you described. Our parents nowhere to be seen, but it was such a safe, lovely environment. And we were all playing in the square, and they were building something for a bonfire or something.
Bonfire, yeah, St. George.
And we were so worried because there were kittens literally playing, and apparently they do that and then they all disappear.
The minute you light the minute there's any
but as children we were being so dramatic.
Of course there were tears and everything because they sleep at the bottom of the bonfire until the night where you light it.
And we have perverse parents that of course were probably telling us that the cats go up in smoke.
Oh yeah, my father for sure
100%.
100%, yeah. They'll never make it. But they do that every year at St. George. I mean, I don't want to advertise this almost too much because it's such a lovely, well-kept secret of Portofino.
Don't go. It's awful.
Don't go. It's terrible. But they do this. They celebrate. They share the same patron saint as England, which is why the flag of St. George for me, is always home, whether it's England or Genoa. That is the flag. There's many rumors as to how England got that flag because it was originally the Genovese
I'll ask no questions.
Navy. No. Well, my favorite, because if you ask in Genoa all the time, they say different things. One was a battle that the Genovese Navy surrendered to the British Navy. But my favorite one is that the Genovese Navy was renowned because Genoa was the capital of the world for a long time. Genoa and Venice were the two sort of trading capitals of the world for a period of time. And there was apparently the Genovese Navy was so vicious against pirates that pirates were actually scared of the Genovese Navy. So they would lease the flag to the British Navy for crossings. That's what I was told once, which I thought was brilliant, which says everything about the Genovese as well, that they would rent their flag to people. says a lot about us.
So while we're all getting drunk on your gin and listening to Europeana, very quickly, because I know I've only got you for a very short time, and I only saw you last week for the first time in a year, which is just a travesty for family.
It is, yeah. But to be fair, that was mainly due to the circumstances.
Yeah, of course.
Because otherwise we were seeing each other much more before.
But I should just point out my biggest, it's not a name drop, it's something that you did for me, and you gave me away at my wedding, and I still am so grateful for that because you were such a support. There was all sorts of things going on that day, and you are just Jack. I see you on, and I'm going to do another name drop on your behalf. I see you on Graham Norton, and it's just like, that's Jack. That's just Jack, and that's what's so wonderful. And Europeana really does sum you up, and sums up definitely summers in Portofino. But what I really love about it is that the whole family's involved singing on it. War of Words makes me cry.
Yeah, me too. I don't know how I'm going to do that one live.
Oh my God.
Because also because the children won't be there when we tour, but and that's probably why it'll make it even harder. But I wrote that song as a little bit of not a life lesson, God forbid, but as a bit of something, as a little bit of a mantra for them that a war of words is not the answer. In a time where everybody is going at everybody. Yeah. Conversation seems to be getting just impossible without, everybody's right and everybody's wrong. There's no compromise and has seemed to gone out the window. And it's just really hard to discuss anything these days without it immediately becoming quite aggressive, quite attacking.
Yeah.
And I just really wanted to sort of say to my kids, that's not the answer. That, that's not going to, you're never going to convince somebody by calling them an idiot. No. You're never going to convince people by telling them they're wrong. That doesn't really work. It doesn't usually work like that. You sort of got to try and always see where they're coming from and explain yourself and stand by what you're saying, but try and understand why they might not get it, rather than to judge or to attack them. And so that song is all about that. And when I wrote it, I just had this, there's a lyric in it that says, I hear the children play and I don't have to listen to know what their laughter is trying to say. And that when I had that lyric, I had this vision of my children at their school, where they go to this wonderful school out in the countryside. And just every day when you go to pick them up, there's the sound of laughter and youthfulness and innocence. And nobody's attacking anyone or criticizing or judging or, there's no political views yet. There's no sort of us and them. It's just they're all playing together. And it's this wonderful sense of unity and joy. And I had this sort of idea of I would love to be able to capture that on the record. Unfortunately, I actually really wanted to get that sound, but it was during lockdown, so there was no school. But otherwise, I would have loved to record that sound. There's something like that on a Cat Stevens song, Where Do the Children Play, where I think you hear them sort of playing in the background, which I really love. Anyway, I said to them, would you guys like to sing on it? Because at least we'll capture that innocence and youthful sort of wonder that you guys have. And they absolutely smashed it. They each invited a friend over to the house.
Did they do it at Abbey Road?
Well, they did it initially here in my house, at our house we set up here when we were demoing and everything. And then to get the sort of the take, we were recording in Abbey Road, and we got the opening sound of the album. There's a song called "Remember Us," and that's the intro is my wife and my daughter singing, and that they recorded at Abbey Road. And Connie, my daughter, was singing on Frank Sinatra's microphone. It was a pretty cool moment.
She's peaked too soon, Jack. She's
Well,
peaked
I know. I couldn't agree with you more. I had to kind of take her aside and be like, by the way, this doesn't work like this, right? Because I think she thought that was easy. I've just smashed it. I mean, where do I go from here?
Yeah, but her heroes have been doctors and nurses over I think that's
lockdown.
Done something for a lot of kids. They've seen, reality stars have had to take a somewhat of a back step.
Well, I think we're seeing that with everything. A lot of things look really, a lot of award ceremonies these days, whether it be music, film, or entertainment, seem to be a little bit, I don't know. I think we all look at them very differently right now. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot to be said about escapism and entertainment, and people should be awarded for hard work and good work and talent and whatnot. But I think during this current situation, it all seems a little bit redundant. And so it's interesting to see how people's...
Yeah, the real heroes.
Yeah, who are the real heroes. Yeah,
the ones that kept the country going. And
I think a lot of people who did keep the country going, even... I did a fantastic interview a few days ago where we were talking to teachers and frontline workers throughout the last 2 years. And it was wonderful to hear some of their stories, because a lot of them, they didn't realize how important they were, let alone us not realizing or not maybe appreciating how important, having food on the supermarket's shelves is, or having your bins picked up, or having doctors and nurses being healthy enough and capable enough to keep us alive and keep us healthy and look after us. All these things that we've kind of always taken a bit for granted. A lot of them were saying that they didn't realize it. It was wonderful. I think doctors and nurses definitely had that recognition earlier on, but, there was this lovely woman talking about she had a company that was sort of bringing food from the ports to supermarkets and everything. And when she left in the morning to go to work, all of her neighbors came out on the street and applauded her. And she just burst into tears. She had never noticed that they knew what she even did. And she goes, to be honest, they probably didn't know what I did until the pandemic. But seeing me and my
good has
truck,
come out of this.
Oh, for sure, lots
it?
of good has come. I think loads of good has come out of it. I mean, I've been really blown away by some of the humanity and the magic that I think we've seen in the last 2 years. I mean,
sometimes you need to see rock bottom to see the real good and shining stars.
Totally.
Talking of escapism, before you escape me, soundtracks. I always think your records should be on movies.
So do I.
Oh my God! I mean, I know. I know
agree.
you kind of got. I know you kind of got the ghost of Ennio Morricone. Did I say that in a terrible?
No,
Italian
I was
accent?
actually quite impressed. Didn't know you had that in you.
I know. Oh yeah. I was going to say something terribly crass about Italian in me, but we all know that's Greek.
Una faccia, una razza, we say. The Greeks and Italians, one face, one race is the expression.
Yeah, I remember.
Italians.
Yeah, but I remember when my son did faint at school, because he saw his own blood, and you're like, so
Amazing.
Greek, so Greek.
A little bit of drama.
I know I go on about Bond themes, and I'm not alone. If you look on Twitter, and I may have started that rumour, but if you look on Twitter, people agree. Your songs, Candlelight was so Bond. Everyone said it. Are you going to be doing some soundtracks?
Not that I'm aware of. Well, there is potential things in the pipeline, but a lot of different projects. So many things have been put on hold in the last year or two because of.
So what's the priority? What's the next year looking like, providing we don't all go into another lockdown?
No, I don't think we will go into another lockdown. I'm not going to, I don't want to go into down that thing, but I think slowly, without rush and with caution and with safety, we have to learn how to live again. People have to live. Otherwise, we're going to be facing a lot bigger problems than COVID.
Yeah.
And by that, I also mean health problems. But so hopefully we're going to be able to go back to touring in a safe environment. In a place where people feel confident to be there, in a place where we can guarantee, you can never guarantee 100% safety in life in anything, but as long as we can guarantee more than there is right now and just feel supported by all areas of society, And we're going to put out some new music in the next month. We've got new songs coming out. There's basically going to be a Europeana encore, is what I like to think of it.
Oh,
it's
I
the
like
encore. And we're going to be hitting the road in Europe in February, hopefully. We're kind of watching day by day as the different legislations are passed and different rules are drawn up and different laws. So we're going to see if that's possible. We're doing that. But we will almost definitely be touring in the UK in March, and we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can't wait. Hammersmith Apollo.
Yeah.
Is that the big one?
That's going to be, I think that's the last show of the tour, which will be great. And,
I need to get my wriggle on and start nagging you for tickets. I just hope, what I hope is that musicians aren't dragged into politics with regards to requirements for audiences, because I know Eric Clapton's already been quite vocal about this. And I really hope decisions are made that don't put it on musicians, because you just want to get on now with making the music and not be political pawns. And I think that's really, really...
Yeah, it's very difficult. And the only reason voices like Clapton's become, turned up or turned down is because there isn't enough at the top being organized properly.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. I do generally believe that everybody's entitled to their opinion, whether I agree with it or not. And it is a very difficult argument to have. Some conversations, when you break them down about who's allowed to come into your show or yes or no, if they had said the same thing to you 5 years ago pre-pandemic, you would have thought it was madness.
Yeah.
But post-pandemic, you have to sort of change your perspective a little bit. But we also have to hold on to some values that we all, do, I think, believe in. So it's finding this fine balance between what is safe and also in the long term, what do we really want to be telling people what to do and what not to do? And should we be the ones that, impose anything on anyone? And I think it's just about finding that balance.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen overnight. It's only 2 years. We all sort of talk about it like as if it's been going crazy for a decade, but it was yesterday that this kind of started, and it's coming and going, and it's ever changing, and the science is changing. And that's the beautiful thing about science, is that it changes. And it's giving us information that we all need to be able to adapt to. We need to be a bit more flexible, though, and realize that what was happening 2 years ago isn't happening anymore, and none of us know what could happen tomorrow. And when people just sort of have this, it's definitely going to happen, that's when it gets dangerous, because there's no certainties in a lot of things. But we need to I think the conversation needs to be had for as long as possible, and everybody's opinions need to be heard.
Yeah, and I think what you say about we need to adapt. I started watching a name drop of mine regarding you. Wonderful Jamie Dornan's The Tourist. God, it's so good.
It's so good. We're finishing it tonight. So
yeah, I think we've got 2 left. But there was a quote in it. This isn't a spoiler, I promise you, where she says her father used to say, you can either be a coffee bean, a potato, or an egg. You put them in hot water, the egg gets harder, the potato gets softer, and the coffee just goes with it. And I think maybe we should all be a bit more coffee.
and there's the slogan for the night.
There's the slogan.
There's the headline.
We
should all be a little bit more coffee.
We should all be a little bit more. Are you allowed to tell us what the next single is?
Yeah. It's not 100% confirmed, so I don't want to give you something that could change at the last minute. But right now, we all seem to be leaning on a song called Through the Rain, because I think that's what everybody needs. Everybody needs to know that we're going to get through this together. And it's a very universal, we've got this song. I just wanted to put something out with a lot of hope, and this song has it.
That's what we need, hope.
Yeah.
But I think the tour's going to be amazing. I can't wait. I really can't.
Me too.
I can't wait to just be with people and hearing that, when you meet
and the excitement, excitement of a show, of being taken away somewhere for an hour and a half. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And thank you. And it's been so shit for musicians, honestly. But
I thought you were talking about the interview for a second.
This has been shit.
Been so shit.
Can we do it again, please?
I was like, wow, what a way to close. This has been so shit. We must not do it again anytime soon.
I'm going to just scrap this, okay, cuz? We tried. Do you know what? I think it's been bloody good.
I think it's been great.
I think it's been really good. I think it's hopefully shown as slightly things that people may not know about you. The Ray I can't even say his name
Ray
now.
LaMontagne, yeah.
And the football thing. And,
for sure.
Yeah. And we're going to put everything in the show notes so that
Cool.
people can find you. There's still tickets for sale. Yes?
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
thanks to COVID, yes, it was selling out, and then it just sort of stopped.
No, buy tickets. It's all going to be good.
It's all back in action.
When does the UK tour kick off?
In March.
Right.
Early March.
And
I
it
don't know the
goes
exact
on.
date. And it goes on throughout the whole of March. It's going to be. I think we're doing about 3 weeks across the UK.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
we will definitely be coming to a town near you.
Brilliant. Well, Jack, thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you very much for
I'm
having me.
so grateful for you to come on.
I'm so grateful for you to having me on.
Prove to people I do actually know you.
I told you he was my cousin.
I told you, you see. He brought up acid jazz.
Yeah, I wasn't going to let you get away with that. I was definitely joking.
No.
By the way, I have nothing against acid jazz. I don't want to get hate mail.
No, you won't. And if you're listening to Michael McDonald and the Doobie Brothers,
that's not acid jazz.
There's a lot of moogs and we were chatting about Billy Preston.
Call it acid jazz. Oh, I love Billy Preston.
Oh, there was.
You think there was? Would you say there's acid jazz?
Well, I used to do. This is my name drop. I used to do a little jazz show on a local radio station, and my whole thing was people used to go, "Oh, I don't really like jazz. I'm not going to listen."
I hate
don't
when people
really
say that.
Oh, I hate that.
Me too.
And you're like, Sting plays jazz. No,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, he does. Sting plays the jazz double bass, and
Quincy Jones, who made all the greatest records ever,
Yeah.
is the king of jazz. So
exactly.
That's what people.
And your son's favourite, who is also my favourite, and
George Benson.
George Benson, jazz guitar Benson. That we had the most. I tell you, your kids are so zen and cool and know exactly what they like, and your son is as big a George Benson fan as me, if not bigger. And we're going to have I'm going to have so much fun helping him explore jazz. Sorry,
well,
I'm taking that crown.
I'm taking him to football in about 5 minutes as you speak. And I know that the minute we get in the car, he says, "Can you put Give Me the Night?" Every time we get in the car, it's Give Me the Night. That's his I'm in the car mode.
Well, I explained to him that it was love times love, not love X love.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So, but it's an easy mistake. I was calling Ed Sheeran's album X for ages, and it's Multiply. So And
I called it X too, actually. Now that you say it.
But you go off and do some football.
Right,
have I just raised awareness of that?
yeah.
It's not called X.
Well, I'll be damned.
That's why I couldn't find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much to Jack. That was absolutely brilliant, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Remember, you can keep up to date with Diary of a Name Dropper on Instagram at Diary of a Name Dropper, and I will be back in a fortnight. A huge thank you to Your Voice Here Productions for your patience and incredible production and editing skills. And don't forget to follow, like, subscribe on all your usual podcast platforms. And if you're feeling very nice, please leave a review. I will see you in a fortnight. Thank you once again for listening. Take care.